Thank you all for being here, as it's very important for our business community and elected officials to work together. And we're here today to focus on business issues and hear from the two gentlemen who are running to fill the Tennessee House seat of the 2nd District. Before we get started, I want to remind you that the philosophy that guides the Kingsport Chamber in regard to political campaigns is to remain neutral. The Chamber does not support or endorse individual candidates and works very hard to provide equal opportunities to all candidates. The Kingsport Chamber does distribute information that will assist members in making educated voting decisions based on issues affecting business. From this discussion, you will receive emails over the next week summarizing the answers given by the candidates here today. As a business community, we encourage candidates to run who are fair, level-headed, and supportive of business issues. We also encourage Chamber and community members to vote. And Jason Boer is here with us this morning and reminded us that early voting starts next Wednesday, the 13th, and goes through the 28th. I want to let you know that the Civility and Politics Forum that was postponed in August has been rescheduled to November the 29th at Meadowview. Please make sure to put that on your calendar, as we have some very special guests that will be involved with that conversation. The Chamber will continue to lead efforts to promote civility in government, and we plan to continue to remind those in office and candidates for office that incivility is an unwanted distraction that causes us to take our focus off what is important and expend precious time and energy on things that are not. With the challenges we currently have on our plates, we are looking for leaders who inspire confidence, leaders who build consensus and seek common ground, and leaders who will listen, as we have much to offer on important issues like education, economic development, and job creation. With that being said, it is my pleasure to introduce to you a gentleman that has served humbly, faithfully, and tirelessly, providing excellent counsel to our city. And he's chaired the Legislative Affairs Committee of the Chamber for many years. Please help me welcome our facilitator for this discussion, Mike Billingsley.
Thank you. Our purpose is to provide a forum for our candidates to express their views and philosophy pertaining to business matters in the state. This forum is designed so that the candidates respond to questions we have provided to them in advance and not to engage in dialogue between themselves. Each candidate will have an opening and closing statement limited to 3 minutes each. Each question asked will have a specific time limit set. The timekeeper, Ms. Austin here, will hold up a yellow card to signify that you have 15 seconds remaining. A red card will be held up when your time has expired. If you exceed the allotted time, I will ask you to stop. The order of the response has been determined by the coin toss. Questions will alternate so that the candidate who goes first in the opening statement will have the final closing statement. This forum will be rebroadcast both on the City of Kingsport's Channel 16 and on WKTP. And the Chamber will also provide these questions of the day throughout the next few days, the responses that the candidates give in the forum today. As a result of the coin toss, Mr. Vaughn will go first with the opening statement. He'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, and I appreciate so many of you being here this morning. I think this is an important forum. I think business issues are extremely important to this community, particularly at this point in time. One of the things I did, I contacted the Chamber and asked if they would be willing to host a forum. They indicated that they had had discussions about such a forum. They were pleased that I had called. I also wrote my opponent and asked for a series of forums because I believe there were many issues in this campaign and thought it was important that we discuss those issues in front of the citizens. He wrote back saying that he had agreed to a certain number of forums and that he didn't believe any additional forums were necessary. But one of these forums was a League of Women Voters forum, of which I had never heard anything about. And I wondered why, if in the event there was an agreement by him of a League of Women Voters forum, why I had heard nothing about it. I come later to find out there was no such forum. And one of the questions I raised this morning is, why would my opponent bring up a forum that never was to have taken place? He also chose not to participate in a forum by JSA, Junior Statesman of America of Dobbins-Bennett. He also chose not to participate in a forum that was to be hosted by the Kingsport Bar Association. And instead, he chose to send out flyers, such as in 2008, indicating that I had done all kinds of things. And that is the kind of politics that, ladies and gentlemen, is destroying our country. Let's come together and discuss the issues as each of them see them, as each of us sees those issues. Let's talk in front of the people rather than behind the people. Now, in 2008, I chose not to respond back concerning these issues and allowed my opponent to say all kinds of things that just weren't true. But in 2010, today I say I chose not to do that. I will respond to the issues as they are presented to me, and I will show my opponent's record for what it is. Thank you.
Mr. Shipley, you'll have 3 minutes.
It's very interesting to me that my opponent comes to the mic this morning claiming to talk about jobs and wants to misrepresent the truth. The fact of the matter is, enough was enough. His failed legislative record over 6 years was enough to embarrass this community. Such things as House Bill 3402, a Tennessee minimum wage, supported by Mike Turner, the Executive Vice President, AFL-CIO, above the national standards. House Bill 625, Tennessee minimum wage, higher than the minimum wage that's supported by the federal government. A job killer. House Bill 925, Amendment 2, Vaughn voted to kill the photo ID when you vote. Why do we not want to know who's voting? Senate Bill 407, Amendment 16, Vaughn voted against protecting the vote from illegal voters. Why would you do that, Mr. Vaughn? Senate Bill 1678, make it easier for felons to get your voting rights back. Why would you do that, Mr. Vaughn? House Bill 2568, Vaughn voted for convicted felons to keep taxpayer-funded health insurance when normal, everyday Tennesseans can't get health insurance. Why would you do that, Mr. Vaughn? Senate Bill 407, Amendment 17, would have prohibited illegal aliens from receiving most public benefits. He voted to allow them to have public benefits. House Bill 3895, Amendment 1 by Hill, an effort to protect English only in the workplace. He voted against that. Why would you do that, Mr. Vaughn? Senate Bill 1152, Amendment 8, driver's license testing in English only. He voted to allow other languages. Why would you do that, Mr. Vaughn? HB 401, Amendment 3, required police to check the ID of illegal immigrants. Why would you do that? I have no answers for that. That's why he was defeated in 2008. It's why he will be defeated in 2010. This is about jobs. This is about our economy. It is a very, very important election. It is not an election that we need to stand up here and make up stories about why somebody allegedly doesn't go to a debate. When you have a campaign that's in motion and people try to schedule things after you're already in motion, it would serve well if they would try to coordinate with your schedule, like the Chamber did and like Sullivan South. There's nothing wrong with debates, but how much talk is necessary to establish a proven record of failure in the legislature? How much talk do we have to do? Thank you.
The first question, Mr. Vaughn will respond first, then Mr. Shipley. I won't get up in between the candidates. Each will have 4 minutes to respond. And here's the question. Revenue for operation of state government is likely to be in short supply for the upcoming fiscal year. Assuming this is true, do you support or oppose cuts in state government, or an increase in taxes, or some combination to make up any shortage of revenue? What areas would be your priority? What areas would you be willing to cut? Mr. Vaughn.
And thank you. I really do appreciate this opportunity to discuss real issues. Cuts in state government. The political climate is such that saying anything related to increased taxes is political suicide. But let me give you a perspective I believe must prevail. With the current tough times our citizens are facing, they will have a difficult time trying to swallow higher taxes of any kind. So I think we have to take that off the table, higher taxes. But also I think we have to address the issue with lower revenues due to decreases in sales and business tax collections. A balanced budget in accordance with Tennessee's Constitution will be difficult at best. Our first priority must be that we send serious people to Nashville who are prepared to make the tough choices. Legislators such as my opponent, they vote against bills such as the 2009 road bill, House Bill 2390, to show themselves as some sort of fiscal conservative, and then they come home and they take credit for the work that other legislators have performed. You've seen the commercial promises kept. There were no promises kept. That road has not been fixed as it was promised. And so there are no promises kept, as the commercial indicates. Tennessee's budget is such that there are few luxuries. Much of our budget is based on drawing down federal dollars. That means when we remove state dollars, we also lose federal dollars that we cannot draw down. Ladies and gentlemen, the entire budget must be on the table. We must be willing to make the hard decisions as to how we not meet the priorities of our own, but how we meet the people's priorities. And that's what government is about. It's about making sure the things that are important to your citizens, those are the things that become our focus. Now, that's what I have always done. You have just heard a liturgy of all of these things. Amendment number 17. Anyone who knows anything about state government and how these bills come about, if you get to 17, amendment number 17, it's garbage. It is garbage. And that's what he has claimed that I have done. I voted against amendment number 17. That's some kind of amendment that somebody has placed on that bill to try to kill it. And yes, I have been willing to make the tough choices. I was willing to do those things that made sense for you. And ladies and gentlemen, giving me the opportunity, I will go back and continue to do those things.
You're hilarious. It absolutely just tickles me to death. The gentleman brought up the idea of amendments, and his amendments on, let's see, what amendment was it about the nuclear dumping that was provided by Ulysses Jones? Show me the nuclear dump in our district. That was a foolishness that was added to a responsible piece of environmental legislation, and it was killed because of people trying to play politics. Promises made, promises kept is important to this community. I promised that that road would have safety features put on it. The very day after I was elected, there's people in this room that were with me on 126 trying to decide what we needed to do to fix it. And we accomplished exactly what we set out to do, didn't we? It's being done right now. It's a serious misrepresentation to make fun of a legislator that goes down there and accomplishes exactly what he says and tries to confuse a community. I thank you for having me here this morning. I'm sorry this got started off a little aggressive, but that's just the way it's going to be. That's the way it's going to be. I did support cuts in state spending. I thought Tennesseans had spent enough. I thought $270 million in tax increases on the budget in 2009 were too much. I thought it was something that needed to be addressed, and I addressed it with my vote. I voted against taxing you again and again. In 2010, the governor proposed another $170 million worth of tax increases. I would have voted against it again. But by the end, we had negotiated that away, and there were no tax increases. My opponent makes light of the fact that I voted against something that was supposed to take money away from roads. Simply not true. That's simply not true. These roads have maintenance buckets of money that are available, and this particular road was repaired out of that. The next budget is going to be very problematic, and we need to wait to see, more specific to the Chamber's question, what the governor is going to propose before we start talking about cuts. In the Chamber's question, they asked me what I would generally support. I generally support keeping K-12 education at about the same level. I would support keeping teen care at about the same place with an eye towards more fiscal responsibility. And with a Republican majority, a working Republican majority in the House, I'd like to revisit the illegal immigration issue and the $400+ million that cost taxpayers over the last year. I've always said this, and I'm going to repeat it again for you this morning. Tennessee is not out of money. Tennessee is out of fiscal priority. That is the hard work of the legislature, to sit down and look at what are the priorities and where can we use these finite resources that we have given to us. Balancing the budget is a big word. It's constitutionally mandated in Tennessee. It serves no purpose, though, to propose a budget that's above the revenue stream coming into the state and then say I'm going to balance the budget by raising taxes. Raising taxes is not the solution. Good management and good leadership is the solution.
Next question, Mr. Shipley will go first, and you'll have 1 minute to respond. Do you favor or oppose the imposition of a state income tax?
I think that's a simple answer. I oppose a state income tax. Always have and always will. Majority of Tennesseans certainly oppose a state income tax. I think it's a job killer. It's a place that we don't need to go. But we do have a form of income tax in the state of Tennessee, and most of you don't even think about it. We tax the income of our retirees, of our elderly, the Halls tax. And that's something that we need to consider as we move forward with plans in the future, is how can we reduce the income tax, state income tax, that's being applied to our seniors. And that's something that I've pledged to do over the next few years, is evaluate that. It's very difficult. It is an integral part of our tax stream to remove a component that is generating taxes. But it's my intention to look at that very carefully over the next few years. No to a state income tax.
It's really nice that we have found an issue that we agree upon. The people in Tennessee have been real clear. They do not support an income tax, and as a result of that, I am not in favor of an income tax because I believe that the elected representatives represent the people. And when the people have spoken loud and clear, then I think it's up to their elected representatives to do the things that are important to them. Now, there's a good reason why the people do not support an income tax. And that reason is because they just don't trust government. And they've got good reason why they don't trust us. Because we have said one thing in many instances and done something else. That is the kind of thing that has caused some of the problems that we face today in government.
The next question, Mr. Vaughn will go first. This is a total of 4 minutes. The following question is broken down into 4 parts. The candidates will have 1 minute to respond to each piece separately for a total of 4 minutes for this question. And because of the way we've arranged the room, they'll go ahead and respond to all 4 without swapping back and forth. In the past few years, the General Assembly has considered and in some cases voted on the following bills. What is your view on each of these, and how do you see their passage impacting business? Allowing victims of domestic violence to receive unemployment when they cannot work due to the violence, allow public safety employees to unionize, establish a state minimum wage, require businesses with more than 25 employees to provide paid sick leave and vacation leave.
Again, thank you. I think this is an important question, and I think it shows a perspective of many of the issues that we all face every day. Victims of domestic violence. This is a horrible crime, and that's exactly what it is, a crime. It is a personal risk many families face every day. But it is not a business risk, and businesses should not be asked to take the responsibility of personal risk of things that happen within family. Perpetrators of domestic violence should be severely punished. They should be made to pay all the costs associated with their crimes, but that cost should not be borne by business. Public safety employees to unionize. This is important, again, because I believe all employees, I believe all people have a right to be able to organize. When you look at Mr. Billingsley here today, he is a member of the Kingsport Bar Association. It is an association of lawyers that come together, pool their monies, and advocate for the things that are important to lawyers. I think that same opportunity should be available to any and all employees, including public safety employees. They should have the right to come together, pool their dollars, and advocate for the things that are important to them. Establishment of a state minimum wage. I want to answer that question this way. In 1965, the minimum wage was $1.25 an hour, and the average CEO made 51 times the minimum wage, or $63.75 an hour. In 2005, the minimum wage was $5.15 an hour, and the average CEO made 821 times the minimum wage, or $4,228. Now, about that same period of time, the average wage for full-time employees was about $19 an hour, or 3.7 times the minimum wage. We've got to protect the middle class. We have to make sure that their incomes are able to keep up with the cost of living. The last issue has to do with requiring businesses with 25 or more employees to pay sick leave and vacation. Again, ladies and gentlemen, those sound like good, lofty goals, but business has a difficult time trying to be able to do all of the things that they are now required and mandated to do. And to put the responsibility of mandatory sick leave and vacation on businesses would just be an additional burden that they could not bear, particularly in a global economy where they're competing with countries that have no such kind of responsibilities. We've got to keep our businesses agile and able to respond to their marketplaces, and we've got to make sure we don't put unnecessary mandates on them that make them uncompetitive.
I don't have a list of the questions here, but the first question was I do not support the use of workers' compensation or unemployment benefits to be used for domestic violence. I agree with my opponent that that's an unnecessary burden on business, and it's an inappropriate way to deal with the problem. I certainly support very stringent laws addressing the offenders, up to and including the confiscation of their personal property to pay for any damages incurred by the victim. Second question was, do you support the unionization of public safety employees? I think I've made that abundantly clear to the firefighters here that I do not support unionization. I do think that we need to support our firefighters in a responsible manner. I think our community needs to be right up front with them and provide them the protection, the retirement, and the security that they need to serve this community. But the issue of the unionization is where I draw the line. I think in this time of fiscal stress on our community, our cities and counties are constrained to the revenue stream that's before them, and to impose union contracts before our board, mayor, and aldermen simply causes them to have to consider tax increases that the taxpayers have indicated they're unwilling to pay. I do not support a state minimum wage above the federal minimum wage. When you lay out a minimum wage, even if it's $1, a loaf of bread begins to float in its value with that dollar. If somebody's making $1 an hour and they're flipping hamburgers, it doesn't matter whether you pay them $1, $5, or $10 an hour. The cost basis of that dollar, of that hourly wage, is going to accrue someplace. It accrues in the hands of the consumer. Ultimately, that's passed to the consumer. I have been criticized for calling it a starting place, but it is a starting place. How many people in this room got minimum wage jobs when they were in college that you would not have been able to get had the minimum wage been $10 or $15 an hour? And do you think that sick pay or vacation time should be used for let's see, what is that one? Oh, that's the issue concerning 25 employees, and should they be allowed to use their vacation and sick time in a contract relationship with an employer? Bottom line is no. Government needs to get out of the pocket of business. Government is definitely the problem when it comes to business and that relationship. Government needs to minimize the amount of red tape and you keep taxes low and build the infrastructure for business to work in. But how business conducts itself relative to that, that's an unnecessary step, and I would not be in favor of allowing that.
And this next question, Mr. Shipley will go first. There'll be 4 minutes to respond. Do you support the new state education standards which have increased rigor in the classroom? We'd like a yes or no to that. And then what circumstances, if any, would cause you to support lowering or raising these standards again?
Thanks. This is really an important question. You know, job development, workforce development is a really important issue in the United States, not just here. We've done a really good job of doing good things in education in this community. Certainly, I support the new rigorous standards. But having said that, over the last couple of months, I've had an opportunity to talk to teachers, and they have illuminated several issues concerning the fact that they think there are students that simply are not going to be capable of performing at those standards. So I think we're probably going to have an ongoing look at this issue and determine where it really fits. Certainly we have to have world-class mathematics, world-class science if we're going to compete on a world stage. But I think we all understand there are children that are in our school system that do struggle. And some of those kids need to be thinking about other things other than a PhD in microbiology. Perhaps for those children there are other things that they can perform. And I think this community has acknowledged that. Someone told me one time that you can get an appointment with a doctor in about 15 minutes, but with a plumber it might take you 15 days. And I think there are circumstances where the honorable trade of being a pipe fitter, a plumber, an electrician, which doesn't require a PhD in electrical engineering, is just as honorable a skill set as any. And it's something that we should be teaching to our children.
The question, do I support the rigorous standards in accordance with the new educational plan, Race to the Top? There's no question I support these increased rigors. And I don't think anyone is expecting all of our children to be brain surgeons. I think what these rigors are about is trying to make sure all children have the opportunity to be the very best that they can be. And that ought to be our goal in education. In order for our kids to compete, they must have access to a world-class education. And I don't think people ought to try to make excuses as to why our kids can't achieve. I think we need to find reasons as to how we can cause this achievement to occur. And I believe one of the biggest elements in this new educational plan is accountability. And that's one of the things that in many instances is missing from our educational system. Accountability is extremely important in everything we do in the private sector. If you are expected to go out and sell insurance, as I am very familiar with, people don't want to hear the excuses associated with, well, we've got a bad market, well, people don't have money, well, there's reasons why we can't do it. People want to hear, tell me how you're going to do it. And I think we need to use those same kind of standards in education. Tell me how our kids can achieve these new rigors in academic prowess. Tell me what you are going to do to motivate our children to be the very best that they can be. Don't tell me you can't do it, because if you can't do it, then step aside and let someone else who can make that attempt. So I'm excited about this new challenge for our community. I'm excited about this new challenge for our state, and I know we can do it. I look at our school system in this community, When you look at two school systems that I am very, very proud of, and I'm proud of all of our Sullivan County schools, but two I'm very familiar with, Sullivan South and Dobbins Bennett High School, those schools have proven that academic rigor can and must be achieved in order for us as a community to move forward to be the kind of world-class educational system that all of our children deserve.
This next question, Mr. Vaughn will go first. He'll have 3 minutes to respond. The question is, do you see the structure of the Tennessee Economic Development Council as effective? And if so, why? And what, if anything, would you like to see changed?
Thank you. And Mike said there were no trick questions out here. Well, I believe this probably comes as close to a trick question. Number one, I don't claim to be an expert on the Tennessee Economic Development Council. Let me give you a perspective as to what I understand about it. It has over 330 members that belong to this particular council. The council is made up of 8 members. One of those members comes from each of the 3 grand divisions. It rotates the president of this organization. It rotates its president from each of the 3 grand divisions. It does not have any real authority over its membership. What it does is gives them the opportunity to educate, inform. It gives them networking opportunities to come together to basically be able to understand the issues involved in industrial recruitment and economic development. So it does a lot of good things, but there are downsides and upsides to everything. One of the things with the council not having the ability to basically set particular standards, you could say that sometimes the council may not be able to implement best practices that are working for other communities. But I believe the Tennessee Economic Development Council has worked for this state. I believe it's a good system. But one of the things I will always do, and some of the things that I did when I was in Nashville, I talked to the individuals. They seemed pleased with the structure and organization of the Tennessee Economic Development Council. And as long as it's working, and as long as the individuals who are involved in this particular recruitment process, if they're happy with that structure, I'm sure happy with this structure. I don't believe the role of government is to stick its nose into everything and pretend that somehow they're the expert on everything. I think these professionals do a good job for our communities all across this state, and I am very pleased with the job that they're doing, particularly in our local area. So I'm excited about working with these individuals, but have no intent of basically being able to try to tell them how to do their job.
I also am not all that familiar with the workings of this particular organization, which was created in 1967. I do think it's important that these leaders who have definitely developed ideas about how to present the economic issues of our state, how to solve problems, and how to move our state forward, is considered in legislation. And they do have a legislative agenda. It's posted on the internet. You can look at it and see how it blends with your way of thinking. But they do bring one thing to the table that's pretty interesting. And they claim it right up front. Their mission is to promote Tennessee. Well, that's my mission, and I'm sure that's Mr. Vaughn's position, as I'm sure it's your position. It's a very nonpartisan thing that we want to see our state, our citizens, our students succeed, and I think these people do a good job. More specifically, to answer the question, the Chamber asked if we are satisfied with the structure and the way it works. I frankly have no idea about that. That's an organization that's outside government. Those folks run that organization in a manner that suits the agendas they set and for the people for whom they work. And it's just inappropriate for us from the legislative standpoint to overreach that and make those statements. I'll leave that to the people that are actually involved in that organization. I do appreciate what they do. They do illuminate our state, which has many gifts and many very fine people and an opportunity here to employ lots and lots of folks. So thank them for what they do, but let's not let the state overburden them with any kind of overreach.
This next question, Mr. Shipley will go first. Each will have 2 minutes to respond. Since each candidate has already represented House District 2 at some point, what are the positive or significant bills you have proposed or passed to help this district?
Let me say that it has truly been an honor to serve all of you, Democrats, Republicans, and Independents. There's no doubt in my mind, when I look back on my legislative record, the most significant thing that I accomplished while there was the passing of the DUI ignition interlock legislation. Piece of legislation that was passed 95 to nothing in the House is life-saving legislation, nationally landmark legislation that brings to the table a device, a breathalyzer, that puts a breathalyzer between a DUI offender and his car. It saves lives, and that's significant. I can leave the legislature today and never go back, and we'll have accomplished something that's very special and something I will always remember. More importantly, that was passed without any cost to the taxpayer. It's a self-funded program, and it does a lot of neat things for our hospitals as well. Very big piece of legislation. So that would be the one that I worked on the hardest. But the thing that probably pleases me the most is the fact that I didn't have to pass legislation. I just had to be stubborn and persistent to get Memorial Boulevard paved and safety features installed. And working with citizen groups in Indian Springs, actually able to accomplish that. And that's a great deal of pride that's involved in that, and a great deal of satisfaction to see that done. When I look at the things that I co-sponsored, SGR 127 and the defunding of Planned Parenthood funded abortions was something that I drew a lot of pleasure from being able to accomplish. I'm very proud to have been identified by the National Federation of Independent Businesses as a 100% legislator for small business and being selected for a number of honors while in the legislature. Thank you.
The positive bills that I proposed or passed, first, I proposed approximately 40 bills during my tenure. And I was proud of all of these bills, but I will only focus on a sample of only the bills that I passed that I really want to talk to you today about. House Bill 3294 and House Bill 3295, those were bills dealing with emergency dental services. I think we saved our community an awful lot of money and helped our citizens in some mighty ways as a result of providing emergency dental service. People who are having real medical problems with dental problems, and I think we were able to make a real difference with this legislation. House Bill 3297, a provision of mental retardation services, increasing the number of people in our state that were able to receive these such services. I am very proud of being able to help what the Bible talks about the least of these, my children. House Bill 3298, labeling of prescription drug bottles for the elderly. Many of our elderly have no idea what their medicines are, and being able to give pharmacists the ability to put what these medications are for, particularly on the label, was something that was pretty important to many of our elderly. Denying annexation of state parks by municipality until certain conditions are met, I thought that was extremely important to communities that believed that their state parks did not belong to a particular community. There have just been a whole host of other bills that I'd like to talk to you later about.
Now we come to the closing statements. Each candidate will have 3 minutes in closing. And since Mr. Vaughn went first in the opening, Mr. Shipley will go first in the closing.
It's been an exciting 2 years. It's been fun. It's been grueling. One of the things I learned was that being in Nashville is a very genuine combination of confrontation and cooperation. Sometimes you got to say no, and sometimes you can say yes. I remain focused and excited about the future for our state. And I suggest to you there's a perfect storm about to happen. For the first time in our history, we stand on the edge of having a Republican governor, a Republican House, and a Republican Senate. And that means a lot of good things for our state. It means that you'll see pro-job legislation, pro-growth legislation. I think you'll see that kind of leadership from Governor Haslam. I think you'll see smaller government, lower taxes. You'll see him resoundingly say no to a state income tax. And you'll see our state move forward. For me personally, my agenda, I continue to want to push the DUI ignition interlock, mandatory interlocking to .08 as opposed to .15, which was as far as we could get at this time. I also want to see laws that address the abuse of OxyContin on our street, particularly in combination with alcohol. And the last thing that I want to really push in Nashville, which we started in 2008 in discussions, we tried to legislate in 2009, is to address the impact of illegal immigration on our state. There's no doubt in my mind that this is going to be a problem until such time that we decide to address the problem. Illegal immigration cost our taxpayers in excess of $400 million last year. And if you're going to balance a budget, you're going to deal with the problem, you need to really talk about the real problem. It serves no purpose to dance around that issue. We need to face it as Tennesseans, Democrats and Republicans and independents, and address it. Whatever that decision is we come to as a community, we're going to have to be prepared to live with it for a long time. Thank you so much for allowing me to serve in the legislature. It has distinctly been my honor. My wife and I have enjoyed it, and we look forward to serving you again for 2 years. Thank you.
I'd like to briefly continue with a few of the other accomplishments that I had. House Bill 991 was a training for emergency vehicle drivers that was really important to one of our citizens in this community in making sure that people would be safe in the situation where emergency drivers are out on the roads, making sure they have the necessary training. House Bill 2753, the Robbie Nottingham bill, important to a family in this community. I think many people became aware of their circumstance. And House Bill 1958, which was the first bill that I actually passed, and it was a medication counseling bill. And these were some extremely important bills that I believe, but there were many others, and maybe we'll have an opportunity to talk about some of those. You know, the thing I want to say is, in closing, ladies and gentlemen, We don't need to talk about our state in terms of Democrats and Republicans, and we need to talk about our state in terms of people. We need serious legislators who are willing to do the business of government, to go to Nashville and work together, not against each other, but working together to make a difference for the people. And that's what I promise. Now, people would say, Nate, how do you intend to do that? And some of the direct mail pieces that you've seen, goodness gracious, I challenge me as to what an evil person I am based upon those direct mail pieces. But ladies and gentlemen, those things aren't true. Let me give you a perspective of what I did while I was in the legislature. Of the 40 bills that I passed, 32 of those bills had companion sponsors who were Republicans in the Senate. Now, 32 out of 40 bills, I worked with Republicans to pass those legislative priorities. That shows a legislator who is serious about working together. And those are the things that I think we need people to do. You don't go to Nashville and sit on one side of the aisle and not work with the people on the other side. You work together. You come together and you work on the issues that are important to the people of this state. And that is a pledge that I will make to you, that I will always put you first. Not the things that are important to me or the things that are important to a party. The people of this state deserve the best leadership that it can get. And ladies and gentlemen, right now, we are in need of good leadership. I put myself forward as being one of those individuals who could provide such leadership. Thank you.
Thank you both. We appreciate your insights and answers to those questions. And again, those will be shared with you over the next week through emails from the Chamber. I know that Nicole made it very difficult to look the way she was sitting there. She does a lot more than just hold up those cards. She put this entire thing together this morning. She works very hard in the job she has at the Kingsport Chamber, a lot of long hours. Excellent professional. It's a pleasure to work with you, and thank you for organizing this morning. Mike, you make it look easy up here facilitating. Thank you for facilitating this discussion. Again, we appreciate you both throwing your names in the hat to run for District 2, and we appreciate your willingness to be a public servant. So we wish you best of luck in your endeavors. Sam Jones, I missed you this morning. You switched hat. You went from County Commission to the Board of Education, didn't you? So I'm glad you're here too. Thank you all. Have a great day.